Start it up. Thank you. All right, good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone here this morning. We are continuing in our series this quarter on building godly families. And this particular part of the quarter, which is the lion's share, is on building godly marriages. And so as we focused on that, we started out with Colossians 3, 1 through 17. We went into our surveys. We talked a little bit about the rules of marriage, marriage and divorce and remarriage, and what God expects of us and how he expects us to honor marriage and how it's a privilege. And now we've entered into Song of Solomon. Actually, not now, but then we entered into Song of Solomon. Today will be Song of Solomon chapters 5 and 6, as you can see on the overhead, basically. 5 and 6, and then Wednesday will be chapters 7 and 8, and that will finish Song of Solomon. What will then happen for the schedule, so you guys know, I know there's been some confusion about this, we've been shifting the Sundays and Wednesdays around, is you guys get a break from me for a Sunday, Wednesday, and a Sunday, and Clint will be teaching during that time that I'm out of town, and then the following, the following Sunday, right before Salt Camp, after VBS, is the next time that I'll teach. And that'll be on raising God's children. And so we'll start that section of it. And so that'll take us basically from there all the way through June, and then the first week of July. For that Wednesday is the last class. For most of those, it'll be Wednesdays, but that one.
Just for everybody else, Jordan will be teaching both classes next week.
Okay.
Because of Memorial Day weekend. So.
Oh, okay. So you guys have shifted too.
Yes.
Nothing is solid, guys. Just show up and figure out what's going on. Bring your Bible. Bring the whole thing.
Jordan will be teaching Philemon in both classes next week.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense because that fits then. So that'll be the two classes. Philemon with Jordan next week, switching to Clint with Colossians.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that'll be the follow-out for the rest of the quarter then, is my suspicion. But thank you guys for your patience with that. Things are just... Schedules are schedules, and this is what we've got. So today, as we are second to the last class in Song of Solomon in this, we're getting into the 6th chapter, which actually I had for last time that we met. But as it turns out, this works out really well because it kind of attaches to the 7th chapter and how it finishes. And so we followed this couple as they found each other, as they kind of courted or dated, as they've gotten engaged, now as they've gotten married. And now they're married, and we're going to walk through the first reading here is going to walk through their first spat, basically, their first fight. And then we're going to take it from there, and we're going to watch how they reconcile that and how they repair the relationship. And all of these are really good lessons for us in this. And as we do that, I wanted to ask you guys to try to think in your own marriages, those of you who are married, think in your own marriages of some type of fight that you've ever gotten into, if you've ever gotten into one. If you've ever had a disagreement or a spat or anything, think back in that, because that's what I did when I went through this. I was trying to think, in conflicts that we've had, what is it that I'm supposed to learn from this? What is it that God's trying to teach me? These are God-inspired words through Solomon for us to learn how to manage relationships in a marriage. And so these are lessons that we're supposed to take something from. So think of that, some type of conflict or something that happened, and try to think your way through these as you go. And hopefully that'll help you to make some connection in that. And being able to do that. And so what can we learn about finding peace in our marriages? With that, I'm going to ask Jeff to lead us in a prayer, and then we'll jump straight into the scripture from there.
That's all right. Our God and our Father in heaven, we thank you for this beautiful first day of the week. You've given us for the time we have to come out this morning to study and worship. We pray now for our class this morning that we consider our marriages and what the Word teaches us about how to be good husbands and wives. Bless us as we study, bless our heart as we lead our study and go. Be with all our other teachers and classes for the children. Thankful for congregation here. We pray blessings upon us. We pray for those that are sick. We pray blessings healing. We pray recovering. Savior. Pray for our sins.
Amen. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you. All right, so I'm going to ask for a reader. This is all going to be on one screen. It's a little bit longer, but I need a reader for it. By the way, you want to fight over the earlier readings today, because as we go, they stay paid. We're going to keep them PG, but they do get more intimate. So everybody's like, I'll read now. And so I do need a reader. Jordan, since you're the designated guy, we'll get you.
I slept when my heart was awake. The sound, my beloved is knocking. Open to me, my sister, my love, my dove, my perfect one. My head is wet with dew. I washed with the drops of the night. I put off my garment. I put it on. I bathed my feet
Okay, so there are lots of different ways to look at this. My particular approach, because I think it fits with the chapters that follow and it makes a lot of sense, is that this was some type of disagreement that had happened. And so kind of setting the scene, obviously she's in bed. He's not there. They're married, but he's away somewhere. And what does it say he comes in? Like what's the description of him that he comes to her? His head is what? Wet with dew. What does that make you think? Where is he coming from? Yeah, from outside, probably in the fields. He's a shepherd, right? And so he's probably been out and, he probably dozed off in the field or something and got wet with dew. He's ready to come home somehow. And so he comes and he knocks at the door. Now remember, again, we're going to keep in mind that this is the home that likely, I think it makes a lot of sense, it comes together likely, although we don't know for sure, is a home that she inherited from her mother, and now it's their home. They've made it their home to start their family. And so that's where she's at. That's where he comes to. He knocks at the door. But there's 3 excuses that she has, that she doesn't get up. What are the 3 excuses? 2 of them are kind of easy. One to kind of think about a little bit.
I'm not dressed.
I've already taken off my garments to be up and around, and so I have to get dressed again. My feet, I would soil my feet and do that. And is that what you said, Rich? Yeah, and the third one, it opens up with it. I slept. She was asleep. So she's already in bed, she's asleep, and she kind of wakes up and is like, and it kind of goes along with that whole feeling. And you might look at this and go, well, this is really an odd thing. And it is in some ways, but I think that this approach of her coming in, or him coming in and knocking on the door and saying to her, open to me, my sister, my love, my dove, my perfect one. And he's adjuring, he's asking her, open up, open the door. The idea here that we're going to kind of forward is the idea that there has been some type of disagreement or spat. And he's coming to her to do what? To make peace. And he's coming her and he's like, open up, I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to talk with you. I'm ready to work this out and figure out what we've got going on. And so she, instead of opening up the door, what does she do?
Stays in bed.
Yeah, she stays in bed. Does she say she's still mad at him? Not necessarily, but what does she say? She comes up with excuses. Yeah, I just don't feel like it. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and I'm going to throw it back to you guys. Tell me if this is a situation that's familiar. And by the way, this is not female-centric. I don't think that this is unique to females, that they're the ones who propagate a dispute. Mostly, but not all the time. And so the question goes to you then. What do you see in this, and what are some of the lessons for us? What can we see?
You think this is before the doghouse was invented?
Yeah, that head wet with dew may be a warning for the men here. Of like, yeah, you may end up with your head wet with dew is what you might end up with. Get out. Rodney, go ahead.
Well, it's an indication of a very bad thing to do, which is to let problems just lie. You don't do that.
Yep.
It's kind of like don't go to bed, let your wrath, go to sleep with wrath.
Yes. Yeah, and we're going to pull up that verse, Ephesians, and we're going to look at that concept of you don't let anger and wrath, especially in a marriage. I mean, if it's a general commandment, how much more in marriages that you don't let wrath and anger survive the night, basically. You resolve it. You resolve it. So does she eventually decide to resolve it? She does, doesn't she? But what happens? He left. The window of opportunity, he was there. He was trying to open the door. He called to her. She was there. Nope, not having it. And then she goes, you know what? I need to make peace. And she jumps up and goes to the door to let him in, but he's gone. And now what happens? By the way, I'm supposed to turn this off. Go ahead.
By the way, do you think it's possible that maybe he was at fault? That, there's no blame or anything, but it seems like he's coming to her. He may have offended her, so he's now coming back. That's a good thing if that's the case.
That is definitely one view, is that I think it's very valid, the idea that somehow he's trying to make peace because he realizes I did something wrong. I said something or did something or didn't do something I should have done. Okay, I think that that's valid. Absolutely. What else? What else do you guys see? Yes, then she doesn't just, she gets up and he's gone. And so it says that she arose to my beloved, my fingers dripped with myrrh. I opened, but my beloved had gone. My soul failed me when he spoke. I sought him, but I found him not. I called him, but he gave no answer. So here she goes then, and it says that the watchman found me. She went and go looking about the city. Now, there's a couple different ways to look at this. One, remember, what is this? It's a song. And this is all poetic language. And so the idea that these people don't actually exist, this is a song about two people that we don't have any indication that they're real. It's a storytelling about this. But the idea is that she went to look for him. But before it says that, it says, or after she says, my beloved had turned and gone, she said, my soul failed me when he spoke. What does that mean? What is she saying when she uses that phrase?
I messed up.
I messed up. Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. She's basically like, when he spoke, I should have gotten up and gone and unlatched that door. My soul failed me. I failed in this. And so now, and this is a second this is my teardown of this, and you can feel free to jump in. It's all poetic. The watchman found, I called him, I sought him, but I found him not. Called him and gave no answer. A watchman found me as they went about the city. They beat me, they bruised me, and they took away my veil, and the watchman of the walls. So what is your take on that? Is it she literally went out into the city in the song, or is she speaking maybe figuratively?
Sounds like she's maybe beating herself up over it.
That's kind of what my thought was. Yeah, I was thinking, I don't think that she literally, it's the storyline here is that she went out into the city and the watchman found her and beat her up. I think that this description in this language is very figurative in that sense. And she says, I sought him, I looked for him, I couldn't find him. And as the watchman found me as I went about the city, they beat me, they bruised me, and they took away my veil. And so there's this concept of things weren't right. And she's thinking about her mistake in that. And then it says the watchman of the walls. In chapter 8, we're going to talk about her description of herself. She says, I was a wall. And my wall was my purity. My wall was my purpose. My wall was for my husband. Everything was going to be for him. And so when you talk about the watchman of the walls, that's a reference back to her kind of conscience. And so basically her conscience is the watchman in a sense. And so she's sitting there after he left and she doesn't find him, and she's beating herself up. She's thinking, this is horrible. What have I done? And my question to you is, and this is more rhetorical than anything, but have any of us been too slow to get up and undo the latch of peace in our marriages, to undo that door and to undo what we know we ought to do? Yeah, Daryl says, nope, not me. It's obvious that we all fall into this trap from time to time. We could have made peace better in doing that, but instead we create more damage. When I did the survey before the class, one of the questions I asked was, in your marriage, who is the peacemaker? It was a multiple choice. And so you could basically choose I am, my spouse is, the husband or the wife. I actually specified so that I wouldn't get confused about which ones were spouses. The husband, the wife, both or neither. And, but you know what we were split right down the center. Half of you that said a husband or wife said the husband, half said the wife. Then there was another contingent said both, and there was a very small contingent said neither. And I'm like, well, okay, that's very honest. We have, in certain situations, there is a case in which, there may not be a peacemaker necessarily in the family as much as there should be in doing that. So the thing that I want to kind of present, and it kind of goes along with a little bit with what Daryl said, and it's a little bit counterintuitive in a sense, but tell me if you agree with this. In relationships, the men are a little bit more simple in that approach to the relationship, to wanting peace and that kind of thing, that the men are much more straightforward when it comes to wanting peace. And the ladies sometimes set the tone for the relationship because of their own perception of the relationship and what's going on with conflict and things like that. Is that a generally true statement that you could agree with? That men are a little bit more simple. They just want to get to peace. And the ladies sometimes are a little bit more like, no, I need to resolve this. I need to talk about it. I need to get it and hash it out. I see some nods. I see some furrowed brows. Some maybe, maybe not. Tell me your thoughts.
Men are fix-it. I mean.
I think so there,
think,
yeah.
You know, if I see a problem, it's just like, let's just fix that. It's kind of the old, you know, wife says, you know what happened yesterday? My response is, well, then do this. And it's like, no, that's not what I want, you know.
Yeah,
Talk
yeah.
about it, you know. Different. I'm not saying that it happens all the time in my house or anything, but I'm just saying that's
That's what I
a
heard.
reality of the difference in men and women a lot.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of the learning curve for both parties. But my point of that is that we're different, and that men deal with conflict differently than women deal with conflict. And sometimes that causes conflict because we're actually in our resolving of an issue, we actually create more conflict because we don't deal with it the same. I don't know how many of you have seen this, and I don't want to recommend it because I don't know if necessarily it's completely clean. I assume it is. I don't think there's any language. But have you ever heard of the video, It's Not About the Nail? It's on YouTube, and you can see them on other videos. And it's the lady who's had a nail in her forehead, and she's talking to her husband, and she says, I've got this pain in my head, and it's horrible, and it's concentrated, and I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't think. And she's got a nail in her forehead the whole time she's talking to him. And he's like, well, you've got a nail in your forehead. She goes, it's not about the nail. I need you to listen to me as I describe the pain I'm going through. And there's a truth to that. There's a truth, and the men need to stop trying to get the nail necessarily. The nail will be dealt with. It will. But you need to stop and listen to your wife because it's not about that. He is the fix-it guy. Well, pull the nail out. It's silly. Just go on. It's not about the nail. And that's something that I try to remember in my marriage as well, and that we all can learn a lesson from. I think it's just that dynamic between men and women. We know that we're different, but there's sometimes finding peace is a difficult thing in that. As I say, eventually that'll come up. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Peacemaking is a standard principle of Christianity. It is part of who we are as Christians. We have a requirement to be peacemakers. We're called by Christ to be peacemakers in that. And in that, and this is the final, not the final point, but one of the points that I thought, this is a really good quote. I don't know who Robert Quillen is, but I found this online. A happy marriage is the union of two good forgivers. And I think that's a really good quote. It's not about just moving on in peace. It's about forgiving. It's about being able to say, I'm okay with being wronged about something and moving on from it. Because the truth is we're going to wrong each other. I've done my fair share. Everyone here is probably thinking of things like, yep, I did that. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have left this undone. But I did it. And I need forgiveness in that. And if our marriages have two good forgivers, I think that that is a happy marriage. That is something that's focused on here as well in doing that. In conflict resolution, one of the things that I learned a long time ago, I don't know if someone taught it or if it was just observation and earning my gray hair or not, but in conflict resolution, one of the things that's kind of key to it, and I think Daniel could probably key in on this a little bit, and that is that when two people come together and there's a conflict, a lot of times what the problem is they see the conflict is with each other, when in fact the conflict itself is the goal. Both people should be working to resolve the conflict, but what ended up becoming, the conflict becomes between the people, and rarely it's between the people. In other words, when a husband and wife come together and there's a conflict, what they need to keep in mind is the problem is not the person sitting across from you, the problem is the conflict. And you both need to try to resolve the problem. And you need to identify it as such, and you need to identify with how the other person sees that conflict. One of the things that I've tried to always do whenever there's conflict in business or anything else, when someone comes to me and says, your company messed this up and it's just a mess and I need resolution and I'm miserable because of this and you guys need to give me my money back or I'm just not happy, I don't go, well, what's your problem with us? Why? Immediately I don't go to fighting with them. I say, you know what? That makes perfect sense. I understand why you're upset. Let's get to the bottom of it. Now it's us against the conflict. It's us against the problem. And if we do that in our marriages and stop looking at the person across from us as the problem, it's going to help a lot with peace. And that's what Christ called us to in that. All right, any other comments on this one? Yes, Brandon?
I think too, what happens is when you're not a forgiver, resentment builds, and it builds on top of other resentments, and pretty soon you're just resent, and you don't even know why. At every conflict that comes up, that resentment comes up, and you're not able to work things out.
It's so true. You just leave things for the future, basically. And those aren't just going to go away, are they? The conflict has to be resolved, and that's a really, really good point. Okay? Yes.
On top of what Jordan was talking about, forgiveness is a tool that God gave us for ourselves to feel relief, to have that peace. It's not really for the other person. You know, you are forgiving the other person, but it's that mental and physical well-being for yourself to move on.
Yeah, at the very least, it's at least as much for you as it is the other person, isn't it? Because what is it going to lead to? Peace or turmoil? It's going to lead to pain. What did she say? I went out into the watchman and I got beaten and bruised and my veil was taken from me and now I'm sick for my love. Why? Because I didn't forgive, because I didn't just move forward and try to make peace in this relationship. And it cost me. And then that hurt, and that hurt. Okay? All right, let's continue on. And so remember, this is the framework of a conflict now. They got separated, she's beat herself up, he's gone on, maybe gotten frustrated or upset himself, and they're separated, and so the others jump in here. So another reader for me. All right, Grant?
What is your beloved more than another beloved? O most beautiful among women. What is your beloved more than another beloved? That you thus adjure us. My beloved is radiant and ruddy, distinguished among 10,000. His head is the finest gold, his locks are wavy, black as a raven. His eyes are like doves beside streams of water, bathed in milk, sitting beside a full pool. His cheeks are like beds of spices, mounds of sweet-smelling herbs. His lips are lilies, dripping liquid myrrh. His arms are rods of gold, set with jewels. His body is polished ivory, bedecked with sapphires. His legs are alabaster columns set on bases of gold. His appearance is like Lebanon, choice as the cedars. His mouth is most sweet, and he is altogether desirable. This is my beloved, and this is my friend, the daughters of Jerusalem.
Okay, so here we have the others, if you will, the friends or whatever you want to call them, the people who have always been there through this discussion. And they've been a great fan of that couple. They've been supporters of the couple. They've celebrated with the couple. And now they ask a question. What is your beloved more than another beloved? And most beautiful among women, what is your beloved more than another beloved that you thus adjure us? What is it that the third party, this group, is doing? And for some reason I picture them as ladies.
Remember who he is, who it was.
Okay, so that's a positive twist on it. I think that's one that I read online. I think it could be a positive list of tell us about the wonders of your husband, which would be a Christian ladies. If there is a conflict in a marriage, maybe that would be a good role to consider, is that they come to him and say, tell me what's great about your husband, since you guys are in a conflict. Tell me what you love about him. Why did you fall in love with him? What is it that keeps this relationship positive and happy? And that's one thing, okay?
Maybe they're encouraged to think about the good things about it, that kind of idea. Think about really who is he, and then they'll change their thinking.
Yeah, absolutely, and it could be that very well that's the case, that they're asking her, to think on those things and do that. Another look is the opposite, is that they're coming to them saying, well, why is he so special? You guys have had a fight. Have ladies ever done that? When a couple has a fight and the ladies come in on the girl's side and go, he's horrible. And they hiss as he walks by. Has that ever happened? Yeah, maybe once or twice. That could also be the case here, is like, what's so special about him over anyone else? And it could be sowing discord in that sense, but it could just as well. But the fact that they say almost beautiful among women, what is your beloved more than another beloved? That you thus adjure us. What does it mean to adjure us? Okay, yeah, what does adjuring mean?
Petitioning.
Yeah, there's a push on their part. It's like this push to call to do something. Why do you want us to do something? And why do we have to get involved? So the bigger thing here is and I want to stop for just a moment. I know it's going to take some time. What is your beloved more than another beloved? And I want to stop and look at that for just a moment and do that. Examine this phrase, because I think that this is like the key to this next description. The description is all great and everything, but that question is the key to me. That question is the focal point in doing this. And what I want to consider is it's kind of like when Christ came and he says, a new commandment I give to you, to love one another. Was the commandment to love new to the New Testament when Christ came upon the earth? No, God commanded that love happened all the way through. Look at Malachi and how much they had failed as Israel to love. But Christ says I came and give you a new commandment. something different. And I think that that's what this is kind of getting at. When you look at your spouse, husbands or wives, it doesn't matter what direction, when you look at your spouse and you look at them, what do you see in them? What is it about that beloved that is different from any other beloved? What's different to you? What is your key to that person that makes them special in your mind? Because the truth is, we all have people we love, right? We all have people we care about, all people that we love, all people that we look forward to seeing and being around. But what makes it different from any other beloved, as the others ask here? And my question would be in that is you might look at them and you see someone who's, like she says, he's attractive, he's got a lot of drive, he's got a lot of, he's fancy and he's wonderful and he's strong and he's protective and all these different qualities she brings out in doing that. But one of the things that I wanted to do is talk about is to say, when we consider and take an inventory of our relationships with our others, I think it's good to ask the question from time to time, what is different about my beloved from anyone else that I love in this world? I love a lot of people, but what's different about them? What makes that relationship unique? And it kind of goes back to what we talked about with C.S. Lewis. Remember his quote out of Mere Christianity where he said, you have the love of passion that starts out, and that love causes a promise to be made of fidelity. But the love that maintains that promise to fidelity is not that passion love. It's the quiet love that continues as you learn each other and you know each other and you grow in that love. That's what maintains that relationship. And that's what makes your beloved more than another beloved. That's the level that does that. And what I'll throw out here, and then I'll turn this over to you, what I'll throw out is the idea that whatever that level of your beloved is, that's the level of protection that your relationship has from the outside. If your relationship with your beloved is equal with every other beloved that you have in your life, then that's the level of protection that your relationship has from being affected by someone outside of that relationship. If it's nothing but a physical relationship, or I love them as long as they're beautiful, I love them as long as they keep this youthful appearance, can that be replaced eventually? It can. But what can't be replaced as you go on with your beloved year after year, decade after decade? What can't be replaced? What makes that relationship full of fidelity? What makes that relationship stronger?
Character.
Yeah, the character of the relationship, the character of each other. Choosing to get depth and the knowledge of that person is going to be that protection. Because when I heard one lady online describe it this way, when a shiny new apple comes along, the protection for that is, I have much more than a shiny new apple. I have my beloved. And my beloved is so much more than you could ever provide for me. And that is so much more valuable to me. Let me tell you about my beloved. This is not going to tempt me. This isn't going to be something that's a problem for me. It keeps our eyes focused in the right place, and it's a protection for our relationships. So as this discussion goes, I think that that's important to consider in doing that. So what is our beloved more than another beloved? All right, so what's our answer then? And we don't have to go through every line, but what's her basic answer? What is it you see? Yeah, basically she goes like head to toe, doesn't she? It's like, he's the greatest thing ever. Are you kidding me? Look, he's radiant and ruddy, and he's distinguished against 10,000. I can take him out and pick him out, and he's like amazing. He's always the best person in the room to me. Okay, what else?
Consistency.
Yeah, you jumped to the end on that, but I agree. She goes through this entire thing, and consistency is a good one. I like that one, Tom. She has this description where she goes through and describes his eyes and his legs and his strength and his all this stuff, and I keep thinking, yeah, that's how Jen sees me all the time, I know. And so all of these things, but this is my beloved. And as Darlene pointed out, what does she say at the end? This is my friend. And this is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem. What is it that I would adjure you that this beloved is greater than any other beloved? Let me describe all these things, but in the end, what was the biggest and most important part? This is my friend. This is my friend. And I think that that's such a valuable lesson for us when we look at these relationships and how they relate to that, doing that. Okay? Okay, what else do we see? Is there anything else in this particular passage that you see that,
Just a small observation, like in verse 10, I just can't help but think of David a little bit here with some of that language. Some of the same language was said of David.
yeah, slaying their thousands and 10,000s? Yeah, yeah. I think it's that uniqueness like
Yeah,
that.
and being running too, he was described as being a running man. So.
Yes, absolutely. Rodney, did you?
I was just thinking several years ago, I was wanting to go on a trip, a fishing trip, and a friend I was talking to was going. I mentioned one time, I said, well, let's just see if our wives want to come, and they can knock around. And the response was, did you fall and hit your head on the rock or something? No, we're not doing that. And see, that was, I know he was making fun, but he was serious too, But see, to me, it's like that. I think that's the key. Is your life your friend?
Yeah.
That you, yeah, you can be fishing all day, but in the evening, your wife's there.
Yeah.
Great.
Or you could take her fishing.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to push the metaphor.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think that would be what she would want to do.
No.
I do ask her to go.
Yeah, yeah.
You think there's more, like this is a very physical description, but is there more to it than that? Is it because of that, like that last line, this is my beloved, because of how he is that way, that's how she sees him, is it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've talked about this before. Is he Solomon? Is he King Solomon in all his array and his splendor? Only to her. From the outside, you'd look at it and go, where is this guy? Where's the carriage? Where's the 30 men decked out in war gear? It's not there. But in her mind, that's him. And in her mind, this picture of him is him. And it is that. And for men and for husbands, I can speak from that perspective. I've already told you all, the same thing. That is that there's, the lily amongst brambles concept. And that is, the ladies here are very lovely, but she's a lily among brambles. My wife is, so I'm sorry. But y'all are brambles in my eyes. And that's the way it should be. And it should be something that we have that view of how we see the person. You notice that all the comments she makes when they ask about it are positive. They're all positive. Do you think that, even amongst this one spat, do you think that that's the only thing that this guy has ever said or done that she could possibly bring up some type of negative? What are the odds of this? Remember, this marriage isn't 3 days old at this point. Life is going on at this point. Okay, so there's things that she could have brought up, right? There's a joke that says that you know why women are really good at being archaeologists? Because they're great at digging up the past. We all know about that ability to go back and to look at things and to pull things out, but she goes back and she pulls out all the good. When she wants to resolve the conflict, and this applies to both, I had a joke about women and men, but when she wants to resolve the conflict, the thing that she dives into, that she looks into, is she looks at everything that she adores about him and how she sees him. And that's how to resolve the conflict. And I think that that's so important in this, Jennifer.
Along those lines, my father sat me and Daniel down right before we were married, and he said, okay, I want you to make a list of 5 things about your other person, 5 reasons you love and want to marry that person. And so we wrote down our 5 things, and we read them to each other, and he said, okay. He said, I want you to hold on to this. I want you to remember this, because there will come a time where you might have trouble remembering this. And I think, we go through our dating and our honeymoon phase, and all we see is the good. We make this the perfect person. We overlook the little small things that, aren't that, that's not important. I think as we go through our marriage, those small things become maybe a little bit bigger to us. And if we're not careful, we can focus on those things and forget the reasons that's my beloved. And I think that's kind of what she's doing, is she's remembering why he is her beloved, why she chose him to be hers. And I think that's a good lesson for us.
Oh, absolutely. And this is I guess, basing it on that, this is the bigger point that I wanted to make. I think that probably, generally speaking, Christians in this congregation, I've not witnessed anything different, have wonderful and positive relationships and marriages, and it's all good things. But I think that we take it for granted what's out there in the world that's facing marriages in the world, and why the divorce rate is the way that it is in the world. And part of that has to do with the shiny new apple concept, and that is that I only love as much as that I think that that person gives me what I want in this relationship. And when that is somehow tarnished, there's conflict, or just life and time goes on, you no longer provide that, then I no longer love you. There's that one side of it, but there's another side of it that is this peacemaking side, this how we view and what lens we see our person through. And I think that that's the example but I wanted to make sure that we understood that's not normal in the world. You are strange in the world if you say positive and good things about your husband or your wife. You are odd. You stand out. And men, you can say it, and women, I think you can say as well. Do you know of examples of women in the world who speak horribly of their husbands, and men of husbands that speak horribly of their wives while they're away from them? I've known it. I've seen it over and over and over again. Don't take for granted the value of this lesson that Christ has taught you as Christians in these relationships. It's so important. Yes, ma'am.
You just touched on it, but what's been in my head through this is a wonderful example of showing us how we should be speaking about our spouse. In the way of, don't be tearing them down and belittling them, whether they're right here or my husband is several hundred miles away right now because I'm down visiting family. So no matter what, think about the way you speak about your spouse. You should be their champion. You should be their rock.
100%. That's exactly the point. And like I said, that is something that not only preserves the relationship, but it's also external. It reflects outward. It's a light that Christ has put into you, that he's taught you, that we take for granted sometimes. We go, of course I do that. Don't say of course. It's something that's taught you by Christ. And the example I'll use of that is, Jen told me this years ago. She was at a hairdresser getting her hair done, and she's gone back to the same lady many, many times. And the people in there are just very worldly. They didn't care much about God or Christ or anything else. But one of the hairdressers, when she was in there and she was talking to Jen, the whole time she was there, she finally, after several times of being in there, she said to Jen, she goes, you know what, you're different. She goes, I have lady after lady after lady sits in this chair, and all they do is gripe about their husbands and everything that's bad and everything that's horrible in their relationships. And honestly, I think it affected her desire to want to ever be married. And she said, but you're different. She said, you never have anything bad to say. You just talk about what y'all do together and the positive aspects of your relationship and how much you love him and everything else. And she goes, it's different. Don't forget that we're different because Christ has made us different. Don't take that for granted. It's a light that shines. Jen asked her for a Bible study. She never agreed or got to that point, but that's a light. That's an intro into, do you want to be different? Do you see that? Do you want that? The world wants it, folks. Let me tell you, the world wants that peace. They want that light. They want that love. They want that. They don't know how to get it because only through Christ can you get it. But they want it. And so don't underplay that in our relationships, like was said. These are important lessons for us. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I've noticed, I've been thinking about it as we've been talking about this and how we talk about our spouse. Mine is a huge personality, and he's not everybody's cup of tea. And we've been married 38 years, and as we've gone through the years, I've noticed how I talk about him absolutely affects how other people perceive, respond, how they treat him, because they seem to, at times, follow my, if I'm gonna, and I learned this when I was young, if I was like, I don't know, we can when we don't know better or should know better. People respond to that and treat him perhaps disrespectfully because I was
Absolutely.
disrespectful. Where if I keep my words respectful and kind and speak about him the way I view him and his wonderful characteristics, that's how people respond to him then. I change everything. And we need to remember that in our own spouses, whether they're a big personality or not.
Yes, absolutely. The dividend is not just in your relationship, which is very valuable, but it is out as well. Totally agree with that. All right, well, let's jump into the next section. And I need a reader here for these. It's like 3 verses, getting into chapter 6. Yes, Ken?
Where has your beloved gone, O most beautiful among women? Where has your beloved turned, that we may seek him with you? My beloved has gone down to his gardening to bed the spices, grazing of gardens, and to gather lilies. I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. He grazes among the lilies.
Okay, so and as we get into chapter 6, this is thinly veiled language. Obviously, that this is language that we recognize that the gardens and the lilies and such like that reflect their intimate relationship. And so the others go, where's your beloved gone? Now, remember, she has basically said she's extolled him. He's wonderful. He's great. He's awesome. He's amazing. He's my friend. Somewhere in there, peace happens. Peace comes back together, and they come back together to find each other. And so they ask, where is he gone? And she's basically like, he's mine. He's mine. He came back, we've made peace, and we're together. And this is obviously a reference to that intimate relationship. But it's also a reference to just basic relationship building, I think. That this concept of their being apart and being back together is this concept of it takes work. It takes coming back together to solve these things. Have you ever heard the phrase, time heals all wounds? Yeah, I think it's false. I don't think that that's true in and of itself. Time heals all wounds if effort is made. Sometimes it takes time. Time is always, almost always an ingredient in healing wounds. We don't have anything that heals instantly, right? But if we also just leave wounds gaping and open and getting infected, they're not going to get a lot better with time. They're going to get worse. Time and effort is what heals wounds. And as was mentioned, Rodney brought this up, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger and give no opportunity to the devil. From the time of this conflict up until now, all we've seen is an effort to reconcile this couple together and to bring them together and to make peace between them. And that's so important not to let these things continue in that. Okay, any comments on that? This one's pretty simple. All right. And then chapter 6, verse 4 through 10. I need another reader in this. This is where you're like, yeah, I didn't volunteer early enough. Morgan, you made eye contact, so you're my man.
You are beautiful as Tirzah, my love, lovely as Jerusalem, awesome as an army with banners. Turn away your eyes from me, for they overwhelm me. Your hair is like a flock of goats, leaping down from the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of ewes that have come up from the washing. All of them bear twins. Not one among them has lost its young. Your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. There are 60 queens and 80 concubines, and virgins without number. My dove, my perfect one, is the only one of her mother, pure to her who bore her. The young women saw her and called her blessed, the queens and concubines also, and they praised her. Who is this who looks down like the dawn, beautiful as the moon, bright as the sun, awesome as an army with banners?
Okay, so here is his part of it. Now, they've come back together, they've made peace, and he gets his say. And he goes through and he compliments her in these verses. We don't have time right now, we've got like a minute left. But he compliments her in these verses. But one thing that's interesting that's missing from these verses is that kind of intimate talk. This is all about her qualities. Remember before he was like, oh, you're beautiful, and everything about you is beautiful from your head to your toes, you're just amazing, and all these different descriptions. And now it's all about her strength, and it's all about her principles, and she's blessed among women, and all these other qualities that he focuses on, which gives me the idea, maybe this conflict was about something to do with intimacy, or maybe it was her, pushing him away in some way or something like that. But in any case, he doesn't just focus on that one part of the relationship. The important lesson for men is that there's times to focus on other aspects of the relationship that are different dimensions other than the physical in that, and being able to do that. And I was trying to see if there was something else specifically about this one. But I do want to do this last bit here. And so basically she says, I go down to the nut orchard to see if the blossoms in the valley. They're looking to see if there's a healing in the relationship. That's the summary here. And he says, oh, return, return, O Shulamite, return, return, that we may look upon you, the others. And then he says, why should you look upon the Shulamite as the dance between two armies? he's going to answer this in chapter 7 as we get into the next chapter. So go back and reread this section for Wednesday. We're going to get into 7 and 8 and finish this book up. But that's the question that he poses, is why are other people invited to look at my wife, basically? Why is that? Why should they see that? The other thing I'll bring up here, which is kind of interesting, remember who wrote this? Solomon? Okay, and Solomon says, the most amazing specimen of man that I could possibly imagine to give to you to understand how wonderful this man was to call him Solomon. So, obviously a little bit narcissistic there. This idea of the Shulamite, this is the first time she's called Shulamite. Does anyone have the note or anything what Shulamite means? It's the female form of Solomon. She is so amazing, she's like a female Solomon. So that's just another one of those things that, feeds back into the same idea. And she's so amazing, she's like King Solomon, like me. So that gives you the idea how great she is in doing that. All right, Wednesday, 7 and 8, and then we'll close up Song of Solomon. Thank you guys for all your comments and help.